Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host, Simon Conboy. Carrying on with the season preview series today, we're starting to near the end. This is the 27th team that we're covering, and today we're focusing on the AFC West champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, for those of you who haven't seen one of these before, I will be going through my projected offensive and defensive starters for the team before going through the schedule, just sort of highlighting some of the key points in the schedule before giving my projected record. With regards to the starters, of course, we're in the midst of pre-season in camp. I feel this will be an accurate representation of how they line up in September. In spite of all that, I'll highlight some of the key battles or spots that will be open before going through what I consider to be the three key areas for this team if they are to have a successful season, make a return to the playoffs and possibly advance. So we'll hop right in with the offensive starters, and at quarterback, of course, many people's barometer of for a quarterback, the thoroughly acceptable Alex Smith. We know exactly what he is at this point in his career. If there's one guy who's been very steady, outside of the first few years, it did take him a while to get going on some really bad Niners teams. It's Alex Smith. Doesn't take many risks. Doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, but he's got good mobility. He's a sound decision maker and a pretty accurate thrower. You can have success with this guy. Whether he's enough to put you over the top in the playoffs, I'm not so sure. But he's not going to get your team beaten. Seems to be the most definitive trait of his. He won't cost you games. The running back position, no more Jamal Charles. Sadly, we'll see the duo of Spencer Ware and Charcandrick West once again. Neither player are particularly overwhelming running back, but they're both certainly solid. They've got good all-round skill sets. Ware more of the inside runner than West, but both can do a lot of things. It's an Andy Reid offense. You're going to have to be able to catch the ball as a runner. He does love throwing to those guys, and Alex Smith is more than happy to do so as well. He loves a good check down. So both solid receivers, both pretty good in pass pro as well. I think as a pairing, they're going to cause some teams some issues, but you're not going to see too many 100-yard games from either one of them. This is a true running back by committee. The wide receiver position is a interesting one. The surprising cut of Jeremy Maclin leaves Tyreek Hill, who was pretty stellar last year, as the theoretical number one. He is, of course, a speedster with great burst and elusiveness. Was a far better catcher than I guess many would have expected last season. Made some really tough catches in traffic. How well that will translate to this season will be interesting. Teams are going to have tape on him. He's going to be more of a known commodity, and he's going to be the number one. So it'll certainly be fascinating to see how he evolves, but he's definitely a game-breaking type of player. I think he can have a Deshaun Jackson-like effect on this team. Chris Conley and Albert Wilson, I think, are probably the 2 and 3 receiver penciled in at the minute. You'd think this is a group that can be, certainly be fought into if you have a really good camp. Neither one particularly outstanding. Conley had a few too many drops for me. But it is, again, it's an Andy Reid offense. There's not going to be a whole lot of deep routes being thrown. It's going to be a lot of slants, a lot of traditional West Coast type routes. If you can run routes and you can catch the ball, you'll do a good job for this team. We've seen Andy Reid doesn't put huge stock in the wide receiver position, and I think you can look at the guys on this roster and see that fact. I think they could really do with a really big physical guy, but I'm not sure that guy's currently on the roster. So there's a pretty mediocre group. However, at tight end, the best tight end in the league, in my opinion, the non-Rob Gronkowski division, is Travis Kelce. He is huge for this team. He was absolutely fantastic last year. He can block, and down the field, he's got great power as a runner. He's far faster and quicker and more athletic than he looks. A great catcher of the ball. Really can do it all at a very high level. He is the biggest weapon that this team has on the offensive side of the ball. So yeah, they're expecting a big season from him once again. The offensive line played a lot better than you'd think. There's not a lot of big names on here. I mean, Eric Fisher, considering he was a number 1 overall pick a few years ago and one of the worst drafts in recent memory, not really a big name. It's odd when you're picked first overall. He's had an okay career. He's evolved into a fairly solid left tackle. I mean, underwhelming for where he was picked, of course, but at least they've got something out of him, and he's developed into an okay player. I don't think his physical skill set is good enough to be a top tier player. It does get beaten by high end speed rushers, and you will see him get ball rushed by some of the better players in the league, but he'll do a job for this team. Mitchell Schwartz, I think, is the more talented of the two right tackle. I think he's a good run blocker. His pass protection isn't great, but this is a very quick passing team, so they can make up for that fact somewhat. But he was a good addition to this team. The guard position, you've got Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, who was given a big deal this off-season. He's possibly an ascending player. He's improved. One of those players that you look at over time, you can see the steady improvement. I think he fits the Andy Reid mould. He's a solid run player. He's got a bit of athleticism to him, and he's a solid in pass protection. So I think he's a plus point. The other guard spot I think may be open. I've currently got Brian Witzman listed, but wouldn't be surprised if that changes. And at centre, Mitch Morse, who again is a pretty solid group. This is one of those groups that played well last year. I think their chemistry and the style of offence makes them function better than the sum of their parts. But considering the state of some of the offensive lines in the NFL, this is not a bad group. And at kicker, Cairo Santos, who's been solid for them. So this offence, I think, is a testament to Andy Reid knowing what he looks for when he's building a team. His offences are often not near the top of the league, but they certainly are productive enough. And this group doesn't have much in terms of outstanding talent. Kelce, possibly Hill. I think it's a bit early maybe to put him in that bracket. Are the two that jump out. They've got the most underwhelming quarterback in football, arguably, in Alex Smith. But they're an efficient group. They do everything to a reasonable level. Although red zone offense, I think, was an issue at times last year, and I think it looks like it could well be. It's why I think they do need another big receiver. But I think they'll be a functional group. Much like some other teams we've talked about, I don't think they're going to have to be great, because on the defensive side of the ball, I think they're fantastic. So I think this will be a balanced offense. I don't think it'll be particularly explosive, but I think they will do a good job eating clock, and they'll be well prepared to attack some teams with weaker defences. So I expect this to be a middling bunch. Onto the defensive side of the ball, I think the best defences in football. Defensive end position is okay. Alan Bailey's developed into a decent player. He had a good season last year. Chris Jones, I think it's the start opposite him. Wouldn't necessarily be surprised to see the rookie, is it Cassagnon? Tipo like Cassagnon, possibly get into the rotate. Well, be more heavily involved in the rotation as the season goes on. But I think these two are the starters at the moment. Not exceptional players, but they're certainly fine. They'll do a solid job. They've got a lot of talent around them. I feel the team's got better at nose tackle. Dontari Poe is a little too inconsistent. Benny Logan is a dominating nose tackle. Fantastic against the run. I'm sure the Eagles will miss him in that regard. One of the better nose tackles in the league. I'm a big fan of his. I think he improves this team against the run massively. The outside backer position, this team's about as good as it gets at that spot. I don't think Tamba Hali gets the start this year. Houston is one of the top players in the league. As a pass rusher, he plays the run fantastically. He's just a top player. And D Ford showed me enough last year to think that as a younger player with more upside at this stage in his career, I think he'll get the start. That said, I think as long as Harley is happy, we'll see plenty of him. That gives them good depth. It's a quality group. We saw even with Houston out for a large chunk of last season, they were still very productive at this position as D Ford really did improve. He's probably the best pure speed rusher of the bunch. Houston's good at that, but Houston also plays with a lot of power. I think it's what makes him so difficult to defend. He's got a variety of ways he can attack you. The inside linebacker spot, Derek Johnson just keeps on coming. He's had injuries over the last few years, and he's getting right up there in age, but I can't imagine them not starting him. You look at the rest of the group, there's a lack of experience there and a lack of talent as well, so I think he probably ends up starting. It's hard to see him not. Alongside Ramik Wilson, again, he's got some experience. He's an okay player. Certainly a job that I think could be taken. But looking at the guys there at the moment, I'm just not sure that happens. It's amazing how undervalued linebackers become in the NFL in the last few years. A lot of teams just do not put much stock in the position. At cornerback, Marcus Peters, who for my money is the best young corner in the game at the moment. I think where he improved last season was not being as much of a gambler. Of course, his picks went down as a result, but he got beat a lot less outside of game 1 where he was getting nuked by Keenan Allen. But yeah, he's become a really good player. He's as good a man corner as the league has, in my opinion. He's just a real playmaker, great nose for the ball. I think Steven Nelson and Philip Gaines, one of them will get the 2 job, one will get the 3 job. It's going to be tough. I expect to see a lot of targets if you're their number 2 with Peters on the other side. Teams are going to avoid him. They're not a great pair by any means. Again, this is one of those groups where you look at it and you've got, right, they've got the number 1 guy. All the other spots, I think, are up for grabs over the course of camp. But again, I think at this stage, you probably go for the experienced players rather than the less so. The safety position, Eric Berry, who had a stunning season last year. He was all over the place. Probably his best season as a pro, and he's had some good ones ever since he was drafted. And Ron Parker, who plays well in what's a pretty good group. I need to watch a bit more tape on him, but it's never really jumped out to me. But he plays alongside Berry, so maybe that's just makes it look a bit more difficult to stand out. And at punter, Dustin Colquitt, who is one of the best punters in the league. Now, last year this team had a great season, managed to end up going 12-4. This year I see a slight drop off. I'm not sure the team's got much better, which was always going to be the case when they made the big trade for Patrick Mahomes. It did kind of hinder their ability to get some instant impact players now, and I do think that cutting Macklin loose may end up hurting them in the short term. But I still think they're going to be good enough to make the playoffs. I think they go 10-6. This defense still looks like one of the best groups in football. The offense is going to be efficient. They're not going to beat themselves. This is a well-disciplined team, suited to grinding teams out, frankly, and still got that great home field advantage as well at Arrowhead. So it's a tough schedule. Start of the season not easy at all, because the Patriots, of course, in the kickoff game, followed by the Eagles, who I expect to be significantly better. The Chargers, who could be threatening them for the division. I think they've got better, although injuries have hampered them. The Redskins, who can put up points. The Texans, who are a bit of an unknown. And the Steelers, the Raiders. There's just no particularly easy games over the course of this year. It's a really brutal schedule. The only reason I've gone winning 10 is frankly a testament to confidence I've got in this team. After the bye, they get a little bit of a break with the Bills and the Jets. That's the easiest stretches they get over the course of the year. So I think it's not that I think the team's necessarily got... I think they're a little worse off than they were at this stage last year, but not enormously. It's just with a tougher schedule, I see them dropping a couple more games. But again, defensively, it's going to be a top group, probably a top 5 unit. They've got depth, they've got quality, and the offense, I think it'll function. It'll be unspectacular but solid, and that equates to a playoff team to me. However, if they're going to improve, there are 3 things that are going to have to go right for them, in my opinion. One of them being the receiver position. I've got no doubt there's some speed there. It's how consistently they'll be able to move the chains. They've got some they don't have the big physical guys beyond Kelce, and they haven't really got anyone proven, a go-to guy on the outside, and I don't think Tyreek Hill's that. Just not sure he's physically built that way. A guy who's going to catch 8, 9, 10 passes in a game, and when you really need a third and short, he's going to run a slant route. I'm not sure if the team's got that guy. I think they need to try and find him, and if so, I think this offense will be significantly better off for it. Derek Johnson as well, he's so important to this team. There's a noticeable drop-off in the team's organisation defensively when he's not there, and on top of that, just his overall talent. Even at this advanced stage, he always been a decent coverage backer. Probably can't move like he used to, but he'll do a better job than anybody else there, and I think he'd be a huge loss to what's a very, very talented group, but he'd be very noticeable if he were to get injured again. They do not have much depth and or quality at that position, as I mentioned. I think he needs to stay healthy and be around for the big games at the end of the year. And Travis Kelce, similarly. If you've been watching the show, a lot of these episodes I'm focusing on position groups. However, I really do feel this team is pretty solid across most groups. There's no glaring holes, whilst I do think they could be better at corner. I still think the rest of the defence can make up for it, but Kelce is probably the MVP for this team. He is the guy that you will notice the most drop-off if he's not there. I can't see this offense being effective if he's not. They'll just turn into a run-based team. Teams will be able to focus on Tyreek Hill. I don't know if there's anyone else who can beat you in that passing game. Kelce makes that run game better as a blocker. He opens things up for the runners just by nature of being on the field, even without his great blocking, because he is their biggest threat as a catcher. And there were times last year where he was just unplayable, especially such a sort of dinky dunk style offense. Have the guy that's so dangerous and physical after the catch, I think is essential, and I do not think this team can do without him. So there you have it. That's my analysis of the 2017 Chiefs. Big fan of this team. I enjoy watching them, mainly because, that defense is good. Big fan of theirs. Plus sweet uniforms. So, as always, if you are a Chiefs fan, let me know. What do you think? Are there any players you think I should be keeping an eye on in camp? Any of these guys you don't think are going to make the opening day lineup? Let me know. Let's discuss. Whether it's the comment section below, the Cover Zero Facebook page, or find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. Always happy to talk football. And if you've enjoyed this, check out some more of the show. As I say, I've only got 4 more teams left to cover next week after this. Everyone else is up on the site. There's plenty of other stuff. I did draft analysis, free agency reviews, doing roundtable. Did a first roundtable with a couple of my friends last week. I think they're going to be really entertaining episodes. Check those out. And if you have enjoyed it, like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon, all that good stuff. It'd be greatly appreciated. And I say it all the time, but I really am grateful for those of you that do check the show out. I hope you enjoy it. It's a pleasure making it. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening. And go Bucks.